Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this virtual professional development opportunity being hosted by the Maine Department of Education. My name is Joe Schmidt. I'm the Social Studies Specialist for the Maine DOE. Today, we are lucky to have Mary Dyer, both of FAME, the Financial Authority of Maine, and also the president of the Maine Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Finance, with us today. Full disclosure, just so no one can be mad at me later, my position as a social studies specialist does sit on the Maine Jumpstart board in a non-voting capacity, in case anybody's wondering about any sort of conflict of interest with that. So I do participate in those meetings as well, and was lucky enough to ask Mary if she wanted to talk some personal finance. And Mary was one of our featured keynote speakers during the standards rollout for personal finance. And since she loves personal finance so much, she was more than happy to set up. And I hope you will also, Mary, at some point, maybe even towards the end, make sure that you promote the Jumpstart conference next month as well. So feel free to do that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mary Dyer.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you so much for everyone to be joining today. As Joe said, I'm a financial education officer at the Finance Authority of Maine. So that's what I refer to as my day job. So I help lead the statewide financial education efforts that FAME delivers to Maine students and families. In terms of my role as president of the Maine Jumpstart Coalition, we are an all-volunteer nonprofit coalition that FAME is a founding member and supporter of. And so we are comprised of a number of individuals and organizations who come together primarily with the main focus of providing training and resources to Maine educators. But that is an all-volunteer part-time role that I serve, but one that's critical to the overall work that's happening related to K-12 personal financial education. So I'm really, really thrilled to be here. I serve at FAME. It can get kind of confusing with the Jumpstart role and my role at FAME, but just wanting you to be aware that I'm part of a larger college access and financial education team at FAME. So there are several of us, a manager of college access and outreach, and several college access counselors. And why that's important and why I want you to know about them is that once we're back in school, those outreach counselors are available to come to your school and present on a variety of topics, whether it's financial literacy resources and tools that FAME offers, or other topics around personal finance, or higher education financing and financial aid 101. That's a very significant focus of our work. So I just want you to be aware of that team, that you do have access to them both via email, phone, and in person in your classrooms. So certainly want you to be aware of that. Primarily today, I'm going to be sort of a show and tell, just to give you kind of an overview of some of the personal finance resources that we offer through FAME and through Maine Jumpstart, some opportunities and training and resources available through Jumpstart as well. Again, I want to thank Joe, not only for the opportunity to talk with you today, but just for the incredible outreach and resources that he's been providing during this time. I am consistently, every day when I receive his emails and the resources that he's making available to you, I am just blown away and amazed. And frankly, as I approach this session, I'm a little timid about what's left that I could possibly be sharing with you that Joe hasn't already shared. So great work to him and DOE for providing such incredible support to all of you. With that said, before I get started, I'd love to have kind of a sense of the audience. Some of you I might have met at our statewide conference for Maine Jumpstart, and you might be familiar with me, but I'm less familiar with you. I'm wondering if you could wave if you teach K-8 students, so at the K-8 level, either using your button or waving your hand. Perfect, because I can't see everybody's video, so either wave your hand or use your reaction button. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so out of the 15, maybe 7 who are K-8. That's awesome. Wonderful. And then looks like even a few more. So perhaps the majority. Joe, let me know if I'm seeing that wrong. And then those of you that are teaching at the high school level. Any hands? I see one hand. Anybody else? Again, you can use your reaction button, high school level, so 2. Okay, great. Great. Anybody teaching both? Overlap at all? Okay, great. All right, well,
Larry,
that's very helpful.
you had a couple in the chat box too as
Yep.
well. So I think you've got about 3 high school for that.
Great, great, that's awesome. So what I'm going to be doing, what I did is put together kind of a sampling of the tools and resources that we offer K-12. And so I'll really clearly define which ones are K-8 and what grade levels they address versus the resources that I'll be sharing with you for high school level. As Joe mentioned, you're going to be receiving as a follow-up a PDF of all of the resources that I'm going to be talking about with links embedded into that PDF. So don't feel like you've got to take a bunch of notes and kind of keep track of what I'm sharing, because you'll get a PDF of that. What I'd like to do is Joe's going to let me share my screen. So I'm going to be able to show you where the resources are. One of the things that's challenging with the FAME website, and we are looking at redesigning our site and reformatting it so that some of these resources are easier to find. But we're an organization that offers a whole variety of resources and supports for Maine citizens, both on the business side of the commercial and business side of the work that we do, and on the education side. And so when you get to our website, there's a lot of wonderful content and information there, but sometimes it's a little difficult to find it. So again, you'll get the PDF, but I'm going to kind of show you around a little bit as well. So as I mentioned to start, again, just as a reminder, our outreach team is available to you. There's a whole host of resources that we provide, whether it is our monthly 5 on the 5th blog and publication that we make available. We have a monthly webinar series, one that we offer for both professionals, and some webinars that we offer on a monthly basis for students and families. We have a series of informational videos and a tremendous amount of support that we provide to students and families and professionals, specifically around, again, very focused on financing higher education. And so we'll kind of dive into some of those, and I'll show you where some of those resources are. Right now in the month of April, and this is particularly important for those of you who are teaching high school, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can kind of show you where to find these tools. I'm going to first take you to the FAME website. Joe, are you seeing, folks, just a thumbs up if you're seeing the FAME website right now? Okay, perfect. So on the FAME website, when you first come to the website, on the right-hand side here, you're going to see a listing of upcoming events. And so something I want you to be aware of right now is that throughout the month of April, we are offering online financial aid evening presentations. And some are in the evening and some are actually being offered during the day. So we're kind of switching it up a little bit to figure out what works best for our audience. So those of you who are working with high school seniors in particular, or even juniors and younger, those who want to get an early start, we are doing these upcoming events to help prepare students and families for the financial aid process. So these are free trainings, and everything I'm going to be showing you today is free. But just to be aware of these upcoming events available. Typically, we do these sessions in person. We go to the high schools and we present in person. Obviously, that's not happening right now, but we want to be able to provide those resources virtually. So please take a look at that if that's something that you're interested in. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of starting with the resources that we've created for kind of our youngest students. Is anybody teaching kindergarten on the call today? Can I get any kindergarten teachers? Nobody quite that young, perhaps? I do want to show you a quick resource. One of the things that Joe and I talked about in advance is what would I want to share with you, if I were working with students virtually or remotely. And one of the newer activities that we've created as part of our Invest in Me kindergarten program, but one that I think could be very valuable to students of any age, is our Save, Share, Spend activity. And so if you go to the section of the Invest in Me kindergarten page, which as you'll see on the hyperlink up above, and again, I'm going to share this, you'll be able to get to that page when you go to our nextgenforme.com website. We have a series of initiatives, and one is Invest in Me kindergarten. And you'll find on that page, and I'm just going to move my thing out of the way here, there is a Save, Share, Spend activity, which is basically an activity, and again, we're highlighting it as kindergarten, but I think it could be used with a variety of students, different ages, perhaps a little bit older than kindergarten, where we've created an activity that they can color and cut out labels and create 3 jars for saving, sharing, and spending. And so these are change or, jars where they can save their coins, and it's a coloring activity. There's also a parent guide that comes with that activity that I think would be useful to share with families as well. And it sort of gives you kind of the steps to work through the activity and then some conversation starters. So that's one thing. Again, I don't think we have any kindergarten teachers on the call right now, but certainly I think this would be applicable for 1st and 2nd grade. And I just want you to be aware of it. Perhaps you have a kindergartner yourself or a younger child. I think it's one that's nice to highlight. What I'm going to do now is move on to the resources for older students. So just to kind of give you an overview of where to find resources on the FAME website. So when you first go to famemaine.com, you're going to see things organized based on our business programs and our education programs. When you hover over education, really, I think the best place for you to go is to start by looking at our resources by audience. And so if you click on K-12, higher ed, K-12 and higher ed professionals, and then you scroll down on this page, you're going to see all of the various resources, many of which I've already mentioned. So our presentations, information about our outreach team, our videos, and over to the left, you'll see some of the resources. And what I'm really going to be highlighting right now are our financial education resources. So the first thing I want to show you are some of the resources that we have for elementary school students. The first one that I want to feature is our Cash and Max Elementary Coloring Book Series. And so basically the Cash and Max series, and what's great about this tool is we have 20 coloring book pages that feature 5 key concepts, and they're featured throughout the 20 pages. Education after high school or lifelong learning is one of the categories. Goal setting, personal responsibility, economics, and consumer choice, wants versus needs. And there's also an educator guide that comes with those resources. So the coloring books, and I'm going to go ahead and click on these real quick just to show you how they're organized. And so you'll see they feature our 2 characters, Cash and Max. Max is the little pug, but these are our 2 characters that we created to highlight some of these different themes. And so you'll see, I'm not going to take you through all of the pages, but these are the coloring book pages. And then again, there is a teaching guide that goes with it as well. Now, in addition to the coloring book pages, we also have a workbook series that is more activity-based for grades 3 through 5. And so just to take a look at this real quickly, again, some of the same key concepts. There's 3 series or 3 themes within the 20-page workbook. So we've got Where Would You Like to Go, which is very focused on education after high school. And it kind of gets into some of the key terminology. There's some true and false activities. I'm just going to move through here quickly. There's a, let's see here, I'm going to take you to the, and then the next, what would you like to do? So this is focused very much on careers. And again, word searches, crossword puzzles, a whole variety of different activities, word finds. There is a activity here where they can actually list, you know, some adults that they know and what are some of the jobs that they have. So that's the career section. And then the last section is focused on financial education. And so very focused on money, takes you through some of the definitions, some activities around earning, saving, and spending. How do we use our money? Again, a whole variety of activities within the workbook. And the educator guide for this workbook series, you'll find all of the answers to the word finds and the different searches. These are all downloadable on our website. You can order the Cash and Max workbooks. Those are actually available for free in print, but the coloring books are downloadable only. So I think, you know, as you're looking at, you know, for those of you that are working K through 2, perhaps you share some of the coloring book pages with your students, or for those of you who are teaching older students, perhaps you share some of the, you know, one of the workbooks or some of the pages. I don't know that I would, you know, necessarily send a student the entire series or an entire workbook, but perhaps using some of the pages within the, you know, within each of the workbooks. And again, the teaching guide is available to kind of take you through how to use the activity. I want to pause here for a moment, Joe, and just see if there's any questions about the workbooks and coloring books before I move on to our next resource.
There's nothing in the chat box, but you guys should have the ability to unmute yourself if anybody has any questions.
Great. All right, so let's move on to our next resource, probably my favorite and our most popular at FAME. Just to show of hands, how many of you have heard of FAME's Claim Your Future game? If you want to just wave or put your little hand icon up. Okay, great. I'm always worried that I'm sharing things that you're already aware of, so it's exciting to know that we've got a new group. How many of you are teaching, I know we've talked about the K-8 span, but how many of you are teaching in grades 5 through 8? Just a show of hands. Okay, great. Great. So that will be very applicable for you folks. So I want to go ahead and dive into our Claim Your Future resource. Hopefully you're all seeing just a thumbs up from someone that you're seeing my Claim Your Future page. Great, wonderful. So Claim Your Future is a resource that we created several years ago. Back in its early inception, we called it Get a Life. So if some of you have been around a while and you maybe perhaps remember the older version, that was the name that it was at the time when we first designed it. But Claim Your Future is both a classroom-based and online activity that was designed to provide education to students around, again, just like the Cash and Max workbooks, around careers, college, and basically education after high school, and money management. So it's combining all three of those key topics into one activity. Now, for when we're back in class, I want you to be aware, I'm going to be showing you the digital version of Claim Your Future today. So the online tool that you can be sharing with your students now and anytime, to be using as an activity for them, to really bolster their knowledge around careers, education, and personal finance. But I want you to know that, and again, the website is fame.claimyourfuture.com, but again, I'll provide you with those resources. But I want you to know that when we're back in school and you can actually place your order now, you have access to a free Claim Your Future game kit for your classroom. So as a Maine teacher, we provide, and you'll see an image here on the page that I'm on now, this is the game kit. And so each box comes with 50 wheels. So you'll see that's our Claim Your Future game wheel. And each wheel represents a different career. There's a budget worksheet. And so each kit comes with the wheels, the stickers, and then instructions for the downloadable resources, which include the 20-page educator guide, the budget worksheet, certificate of completion, and additional activities. And so again, you have access to this classroom-based tool for your students when you're back in school. So I do want you to be aware of that. Again, I'm focusing on the online, but we do have that tool. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that you can invite one of FAME's college access counselors or myself to come into your classroom and present Claim Your Future to your students. It's a great way to kind of kick off the activity for you. We kind of use that as a train the trainer model where we'll come in, we'll present it, we'll play the game with your students, and then you'll have a kit for yourself to use at any other time that you might have available. So, you know, please seek that out if that's something you would like to use. Really, the main goal for Claim Your Future is, again, to get students thinking about, and if we go back to the beginning here, you'll see kind of the learning objectives. You know, we want them to start thinking about their goals and their aspirations, start thinking about how their educational choices today can impact tomorrow. We really want them to be able to distinguish between wants and needs, really raising awareness about available careers, and then a big focus on the financial literacy part of the activity. So I'm just going to take you real quick through the online. This is a great activity for students to play solo. Again, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the sweet spot for Claim Your Future, I would say grades 5 through 8, but online with students, I've played it as early as 3rd grade or even a little bit younger. And the reason we can do that is because online, it does the math for you. So they're not having to work through, you know, the math on a budget worksheet. And so their numeracy skills aren't as critical with the online tool. So we can play it pretty young online. And then also we have high school students who are using the online activity and high school teachers who are playing the game in the classroom. As I mentioned earlier, this is by far our most popular activity and our most engaging activity when we have an opportunity to be in front of students. To get kind of a sense of what it looks like and sort of what it's all about, because I've got a lot of stuff a lot of ground to cover today, so I'm not going to do a deep dive into Claim Your Future, but a great way to get a flavor of what the activity is like is right on the homepage. There's 2 videos. There's a video of us playing it with a group of 5th graders, kind of a highlight video, and then a video of us playing it with high school students. And so if you're curious, these are really short videos, 3 minutes or so. If you're curious about kind of what it's like in a classroom, I think that's the best way to learn about it. The other thing I want to show you for your own resources is on the resource page. That's where you'll find the educator guide, which again includes a detailed step-by-step lesson plan, homework activities, all of the methodology behind the game. So if you're curious about how we came up with the data and the numbers, all of the methodology is there. You'll find the budget worksheet, a certificate of completion, and a training video that kind of gives you an overview of how to conduct the activity. So real quickly, I'll just take you through just to kind of show you how it works. When they first play the game, they indicate their grade. So I'm going to just indicate that I'm a test user. We then ask them if they're playing this as part of a classroom assignment. If they say no, this allows them to bypass the pre-test. There's a pre-assessment built in, and they can go right to the game. If they say yes, then we ask them what state they're from, and we ask them what school they're in. I'm gonna actually put in my town that I'm actually in today. I'm in Glenburn, which it should pop up as Glenburn Elementary School. I can also enter my teacher's name. Oh, and I have to. I'm just going to put in test. that with test users, they still make us do everything. The benefit of this pre-assessment is it allows us to get at an aggregate level some information about student knowledge and behavior change. So you'll see that's kind of how it works if you want to force them through the pre-test. I'm going to bypass the pre-test for today, just for the purposes of time, and say no, and I'm going to go right to the game. Now it's going to assign them a game ID if they want to come back and play again later, so they can jot down that information. When they first come to the game, it's going to pre-populate a career. So I've been assigned financial advisor. It gives me my annual income, my monthly income, and what my college degree that was required for that career. Now it pre-populates, but they're allowed to select any of the careers. And unlike the game kit that you can order for your classroom, there are actually 125 different careers on the website that they can choose from. How we've selected these careers when we developed the game, and this is refreshed periodically, but basically what we did is we took the high wage, high demand jobs in Maine, then we added some of the careers of interest that students often express, a lot of interest in. And that's how we kind of decided what some of the, and then we took some of the common careers for Maine. So I can go in and I can add any career. I'm going to be a high school teacher today, just for the fun of it. We'll keep it relevant. And so you'll see my annual income, and if they want to kind of have a definition of these, you'll see the little question mark you can hover on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that they have to do, and this isn't really a choice that they get to make, but it's forcing them to set aside 10% of their income into savings. And so that's kind of an automatic that we require that they do that. And I'm going to move very quickly, but you'll see it takes them through each of the categories. And up at the top, you'll see my available monthly income and the remaining money that I have left. So there's a progress bar as we move through. Again, the educator's guide has all of the methodology, but we've based this on Maine salary data. So we use the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the median income for Maine. There's also, you'll find in the methodology how we determine student loan payments. So we're automatically deducting for a 4-year degree student loans, insurance, and taxes. And again, if you want to learn more about our methodology there, you can take a look at that. But just so you know, when they go and they play Claim Your Future, this isn't a simulation that is taking income from California or Ohio or some other state. This is Maine salary information, Maine income, and it's also Maine cost of living. So we use a variety of data sources to build costs based on relevant costs for Mainers. Now, obviously, it's more difficult for us to account for salaries in Washington County versus Cumberland County and cost of living in Washington County and Cumberland County. So we are kind of looking at a whole state, but just to give you a sense of the relevance. So I'm going to overspend here on purpose because I want you to see what happens. And you'll see the progress bar at the top as I've chosen my housing. As they make a choice, it's giving them a description, of what each choice and what its implication is. So I'm going to go ahead and own my own home. And again, it gives it a bit of a definition there. I'm going to go ahead and choose gourmet food. And again, you'll see as they select each one, it gives a description. I'm going to go for my gourmet food. And I've got $74 left. So I think if I choose public transportation, I'm going to get a pop-up. So you can't complete the game if you're over budget. And so you get this pop-up and says, okay, you've got to go make some changes. So I'm going to go back to my food and I'm going to do kind of the average food budget, keep it within my budget. I'm still going to do public transportation because I can afford that. My communications, I think I'll just stick with I'm going to go for cell and internet because I think that's just a reality for most of us. And then the extras, they don't have to pick any of these. So these are just some of the extras and they can bypass this if they don't have any money left over. And so I have $174 left. If you scroll down, this gives them a summary of their budget worksheet. Once they get to this point, they can print their budget worksheet. So if you wanted to have them do this activity independent of your work with them in a classroom setting, they could print it, provide it to you when they're back in school, or they can click on this PDF button, save it to their desktop, and email you evidence that they've completed the activity. So again, I moved through that very quickly, but it just kind of gives you a sense of how Claim Your Future works. The classroom game is very similar, except for, again, you're handing them each their own individual game wheel. And that wheel, and I think I have one here. It's not the, yeah, I've got one here. So the game wheel, just to give you a sense of how it works, the career information, and I know it's reversed, but the career information is on the center, and then the expenses are in the outer wheel, and there's a little window here. So when they move the wheel, the center wheel, it reveals the dollar amount. So it works a little bit differently than the online, but just to give you a sense of how that works in the classroom. So that's Claim Your Future. Any questions before I move on to the next resource?
There was a question early on, Mary, and I don't know if Jennifer feels like this was addressed or not. It's just what grade span would you recommend? I know that there's the options to select. Do you have best practice?
Yeah, as I said, I think Claim Your Future specifically, when we're in a classroom, which I think is very different from the online activity, when we're in a classroom, grades 5 through 8, I think is sort of, you know, that sweet spot grade level. However, that being said, we find many educators, and often we are going into high school classrooms as well. I just think that the earlier that we can expose students to the activity, the better. And I think that what we find with 5th through 8th grade is they're just simply more engaged in general around the idea of playing a game, you know, and we're handing them this wheel and there's this activity, and it's really teaching them in a different format than, you know, standing in front of the classroom and sharing a PowerPoint with them, which is what we often do as students get older into high school and college. So I think from my perspective, that 5 through 8 is kind of the prime time, but it's been used with high school, it's been used with adult learners. We have colleges that use Claim Your Future as part of a orientation activity. We have heard and worked with DHHS, who has used the budgeting component of Claim Your Future with clients, because it's just a way of working through a simulation and a budgeting activity then in a way that's not personal. You know, it's really taking the concepts and working through an activity versus, you know, looking at their own finances and their own decision making. So I think it's very, very flexible, but sort of that prime sweet spot, I would say grades 5 through 8, you know, in my general experience. Claim Your Future is played online. We have about 10,000 users a month at this point, not only in Maine, but across the country and across the globe. So we have huge numbers of users in Canada and Australia, and, you know, places that the, you know, the parallel things, you know, the elements of the game aren't really exactly parallel to their financial systems, but still educators are finding it to be very, very useful and powerful for their students. So I hope that answers that question. And again, we're very happy to come in, play the game with your students, and then you can kind of get a sense for how we run the activity, and then you can, you know, go solo with it. It's a great activity as you get towards the end of the school year, and I realize this year is not typical, but, you know, as we get to the end of the school year and you're looking for activities to kind of bridge, you know, the remainder of the school year into summer vacation, it's a great activity for that time, because students love the game wheels. They love the game wheels, the stickers, you know, the budget worksheets. They just really love the discussion and the activity. So food for thought as we're back with our students, hopefully soon. All right, I'm going to take you back to the FAME website again, because I want to show you just where you'll find some of the other resources. So again, back on our education, K-12 higher education professionals. You can choose financial education. You'll find the Cash and Max workbooks and coloring books I talked about, Claim Your Future. Then you'll also find additional resources. So one of the resources that we make available to Maine students and families and employers is a tool that was developed by an organization called iGrad. I don't know if any of you have heard of iGrad, but iGrad offers a digital financial wellness tool. And so basically we have purchased iGrad for the state of Maine. It's being offered at, you'll see the list here of all of the community colleges, University of Maine system, and there are also some private schools there. So colleges have their own custom iGrad site for their students. In addition to that, we have a FAME version of the iGrad site that we make available for free to Maine families. So I encourage you to take a look at that. There are a lot of great activities on the iGrad site. Would be, I love all of these cookies and approvals that we have to have on websites. But a ton of great activities for those of you in particular who are teaching at the high school level. There are a number of courses available, everything from kind of basic financial wellness to, you know, purchasing a car, budgeting, investing, you know, kind of all of those typical topics that you might expect. There are also a variety of really wonderful tools available. One of my favorite tools, I'm gonna go ahead and click more here so that we can see all of the tools. There is a My Money Personality tool that I really, really love. It has kind of a behavioral assessment where you can go through a series of questions and it will kind of give you sort of what is your money mindset, what is your money personality, and with that, you know, what are the challenges, what are the strengths, and what are the tactics or tips for you to be thinking about. So again, a ton of great resources on iGrad. They've also created a new coronavirus and your financial health hub on their site. This is all brand new content. It includes videos and a variety of topics specific to what we're dealing with right now and how that impacts our finances. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Again, that's available to high school students, to their families, to you as an educator, and to really anyone you can be sharing this resource with. There's also an employer version. So back on the FAME website, you'll see a couple of places where we highlight iGrad. And again, I've got the links for you so you won't have to sift through our resources and find it. But we've got both the regular, general iGrad site and then the employee site as well. Another thing I want to show you on the FAME website that I think is a valuable tool that you could be directing your students to. So under the education tab, there is a quick links section. And if you click on quick links, you'll find a series of calculators and tools. So these are some things that you might want to share with your students. We have a savings calculator, a budgeter, a student loan repayment estimator. One of my favorite tools is our student loan salary calculator. So this is a great tool for high school students. If they put in their expected annual salary, it will tell them what the maximum amount of student loan that they should be borrowing based on that salary. And the other thing that it will do is they can then on the reverse put in, their student debt amount, what they're planning to borrow, and it will give them the required salary that's needed to support that debt. So that's a really helpful calculator, but just to be aware of all of the various calculators that we have on our site, because I do think those are really useful, quick tools for students to help them navigate some of the process. The other thing that we have that I want you to be aware of are a series of informational videos on a whole variety of topics. So these are very focused on applying for financial aid and the financial aid process, but they're wonderful videos because they're short, really concise, they're animated. So there's not a lot of words on the page. It's really a lot of animation and voiceover. So I would encourage you to check those out too, especially those of you who are working with high school students, and in particular high school seniors. The next thing I wanted to show you is, let's see, we looked at iGrad. I want you to also be aware of some of the tools and resources that are available through the Maine Jumpstart Coalition. Just a thumbs up that you're seeing the Maine Jumpstart page. Great. One of the things I want you to be aware of, first and foremost, and Joe mentioned at the beginning, we are getting ready to host our upcoming Fostering Financial Education in Maine Schools Conference, which for the past 10 years was an in-person conference that we would host at the Augusta Civic Center. We generally would have about 150 attendees. The conference is focused solely on personal finance resources for educators, teaching strategies, just a wonderful event, very focused on personal finance and economics. Because of the current situation, we're going to be hosting the event virtually. And so this will be a 2-day event on May 7th and May 8th. May 7th will actually be a Fin Camp hosted by Next Gen Personal Finance. And I will talk about that organization in a moment because I do want you to be aware of their resources. So on Thursday, May 7th, the Fin Camp will be led by Next Gen Personal Finance, and you'll have an opportunity to participate in that day-long event. And then on Friday, May 8th, Maine Jumpstart will be hosting a virtual training featuring a variety of expert speakers and resources and an opportunity for you to network and kind of learn from your peers as well. We have a panel of educators that will be speaking. The wonderful and knowledgeable Joe Schmidt will be with us for 2 different sessions. And we will be actually offering 2 separate tracks for that event on May 8th. So we will be doing a K-8 track and a high school track. And so we are tailoring those 2 tracks specifically to educators in those 2 areas, just so that you've got content that's really focused on your needs. And so we want you to, certainly take advantage of whatever pieces of that you're available for. We will be recording many of the sessions, and we're getting ready to send out some information about that event and the registration for that. So we're getting, finalizing the agenda. We've had to kind of retool what would have been an in-person concurrent workshop sort of based event to doing it all virtually through Zoom. So we'll have some information out to you through Joe very soon, either late this week, early next week is what we're expecting. So again, that's a free event and one that we hope that you'll be able to take advantage of. A couple of other things. So when you come to the Maine Jumpstart website, the first thing I'd love for you to do is join our contact list. So when you scroll to the bottom, you join our mailing list, and that way you'll receive emails about upcoming trainings and events and resources. And then when you go to our page, you'll find all of the information about the various initiatives that we offer. Again, I've already spoke about the annual conference. We'll be adding information there very shortly about our virtual event. Under the resources tab, a couple of key things I want to point out. We have developed, in partnership with a variety of organizations throughout the state, other nonprofits who are supporting personal finance in Maine, we've created a personal financial education clearinghouse. And so this is basically a series of Maine-based organizations who offer resources, coaching, financial services, curriculum, specifically for Maine educators and Maine professionals. And so when you go to the Clearinghouse, you can do a filter or a search based on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something very specific within a county, you can, filter your search. But that's a resource I want you to be aware of. As I mentioned, FAME and our outreach team will come into your school and do presentations for your students, but there are a number of organizations that will provide that support to you. So we want you to be aware of that. The National Jumpstart Coalition, for which FAME is an affiliate of, has their own clearinghouse on the National Jumpstart Coalition page, which is another wonderful resource for you to find financial literacy resources and tools and things that you can share with your students. But we wanted to create something that was very specific to Maine so that you could have access to those Maine-based resources. The other thing that hopefully you are very aware of, Joe has done a phenomenal job in putting together the Maine Financial Education Framework and Resource Guide. And you certainly can find a link to this particular resource and all of the resources that he's created for personal finance and economics on the DOE page that he's developed for social studies. But just to kind of emphasize that tool, basically the way that the framework is structured is that it kind of, kicks off with an overview and a description of what is this tool. And then it takes the Maine learning results, links them to the National Jumpstart standards for personal finance, which provide a bit more depth and detail around the content and again, within each grade span. And then what Joe has then done a phenomenal job is to then link to specific tools and resources within each content area. So again, if you're not aware of this tool and haven't had a chance to look at it, I certainly would take a look at it, because it really does a great job at giving you some immediate resources and lesson plans that are available very clearly, broken out by the different standards and by grade level. So it's a great tool, constantly updating this and refreshing this, but one that certainly I want you to be aware of. And then last but not least, and then I want to open it up for questions and any discussion, I do want you to be aware of Next Gen Personal Finance. Go to their Next Gen Personal Finance here is a national nonprofit who is very focused, specifically focused on supporting teachers across the country, not only by offering professional development, but by providing resources, curriculum, games, a blog, just a whole variety of tools to help you support your students' personal finance and economics knowledge. So as you go to their page, it's at ngpf.org. So I do want you to jot that down because I didn't include it in my PDF. But if you go to their website, you'll find their information is organized. They've got their games under the arcade section, the curriculum. So you'll see that they've developed a turnkey set of courses and units that you can use, additional resources. They have an educator community, again, which is where you'll find their blogs, their podcasts, and then there's a teacher professional development section. When you have a moment to take a look at the virtual professional development that's being offered, there's just a whole variety of opportunities. And so you'll find on that page the different topics that they're offering, when they're being offered, and you can go ahead and register for those. So certainly, definitely check that out. You'll also find a description of what is a FinCamp. So when I mentioned earlier, here you're going to click, they're all virtual now. So FinCamps used to be in person, but if you're curious about that, what a FinCamp is that we'll be offering on May 7th. There's some information there as well. So certainly take an opportunity, if you haven't, to check out Next Gen Personal Finance. Again, everything that they offer is free, and it's all exclusively built and designed for teachers by teachers. Most of their team, I think virtually all of their team, are former teachers, and so they've really developed their content and resources with you in mind. And as they're developing and rolling out new tools, their teacher community is providing feedback to enhance and edit to make it more useful in the classroom. So definitely check out Next Gen Personal Finance. So with that, I'm going to pause. We've got, it looks like about 5 minutes left, but I want to just pause here and have you go ahead and unmute your lines if you want to chat or have any questions or feedback. I know it's a lot to digest, and I know it's a crazy busy time, but I hope you'll be able to take away one tool or resource or even something in the future that you might want to utilize, or even reach out to us to help you implement. We're available and ready when you are.
So Mary, can I chime in? I have a question about during this time, there's a lot of online resources, but what can we offer elementary students to with sticking with low tech, no tech, that they could do at home with their families? Because you gave us a lot of great links and websites, but what could we do for non-tech or low tech or no tech?
Well, yeah, with the Cash and Max workbooks, the coloring books and workbooks, short of you being able to print and send packets home, we don't have anything on the FAME website in terms of no tech, low tech. Now, I will say Joe on his page has highlighted, and actually I think it was in this week's email, highlighted a series of low tech, no tech activities. Next Gen Personal Finance, also in their blog, has also created a list of low tech, no tech activities. Their content, while they're starting to dial back into middle school and younger, their content tends to be more focused in the high school space. So I don't know that their low tech, no tech will be as applicable to the younger students. But unfortunately, short of, the tools that I just went through, short of you printing the coloring book pages for your students, sending them home, fairly limited with what we have out there right now. But again, if you haven't seen the link in Joe's email that highlights some of those activities, certainly take a look at that. From my own perspective as a parent of, 2 boys, not quite that young, I think certainly encouraging board games. I think, whether it's the Game of Life, Monopoly, I do think that even though they can't print necessarily the save, share, spend change jar activity on our website, I think that's a great activity to encourage them to do, to have those jars in the household and kind of encourage them to start saving pennies or collecting pennies. Just that activity to sort of kind of stimulate that. And then gaming, board gaming in particular, I think is a great way. But I'll continue to think of ideas and send them on to Joe to add to that list of low tech, no tech. Joe, do you have anything you want to add to that or respond to that for ideas for younger students?
Well, I was just going to put Jen on the spot because I know she was in the session yesterday. Is that when I recorded you? She's got some choice boards, and I know, Jen, you've been doing some work with your local grocery store. I don't know if you want to share that.
I haven't reached out to them yet, but I don't know, Mary, I'm doing choice boards for all subjects because a majority of my students don't have access to technology. And right. We are sending iPads home next week, but I'm still keeping away from, we can send them home, but if they don't actually have internet, then they're useless. So I am sending activities for all subjects with choice boards. and I got the permission from my administrator, my building principal, and the curriculum coordinator to reach out to the grocery stores, so that way I can send home the flyers with students in with their packets. I'm still trying to even avoid worksheets and packets.
Right.
So that way they can do like budgeting, or even using the pictures from the flyers to write descriptions of words to chime in with literacy. I'm just trying to get other ideas from the other professionals to find out what we can do for that option. I just wasn't sure, like with budgeting for third graders, what does that look like for them with without being stuck on an iPad and going onto websites and ending up like down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
So the only thing that I just have a few activities for them to do with, you start with $35 and first you plan a menu and then look through these 2 sale flyers and what are you going to buy for $35? And then kids realize like, this is why we're only eating macaroni and cheese for 4 days. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. Well, and I think this is going to be one of many outcomes. As difficult as this situation is, I think this is going to be a positive outcome that, we've already begun at FAME and certainly Jumpstart with our virtual training to rethink how can we deliver some of these tools in a no tech, low tech, because what we create today, while they'll be back in school, these are still tools and resources that could be used independent from the classroom at home. And so I think these will all be positive enhancements to these programs. But I think right now we're so tied, or have been, to this virtual model or the classroom-based model that it's really forced us to rethink how we would deliver those tools. I'd love to talk with you more offline about, ways that we could tweak some of these to make them more usable in a low tech environment.
I think sometimes we just forget, like they keep saying, like, I think we forget that, yes, we have internet, but do some of these families, can they really afford $70 a month to pay for that internet?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Some of these families are eating ramen noodles because it's 25 cents. I mean,
yeah.
Like I told Joe during our last session, like, know your privilege. We take it for granted that we have cell phones in our hands and we can walk into our house and our computers can be connected to the internet. But when you sit back in your classroom sometimes and you look and you have that one student that's been wearing the same outfit for 4 days, and now that we're out of school, you can't expect them to be able to log on to the internet. It's not free.
Right.
These parents have to pay for it. And especially those that, they're getting free lunch. There's a reason why they're getting free lunch.
Right.
Internet is over $70 a month. That is an expense that I don't even want to pay for. Never mind the families that can't afford it. So sometimes I think people don't realize, or maybe they don't know, or maybe they've never experienced that themselves. Like they've never had to worry about putting food on the table for their family, or wondering where their next meal is going to come from, or can they even put a winter jacket and boots on their kid? I mean,
well, and what we found with Claim Your Future, regardless of the fact that it's available online, where we find students are most engaged is when they are using the hands-on activity that's it's no tech, low tech at its finest. In a perfect world, we would send every kid, right, in Maine a kit so they could play this at home and have this tool. Because we do find that regardless of the fact that there's this mindset that they love the internet and they're online all the time and that's where they prefer to be, we find it actually to be quite the opposite. Activity-based, hands-on, project-based versus here, go to your computer and do this budget simulator. We just don't find the same engagement level. So even, even if they have access, should that be the only way that we deliver this content?
No. No.
So Jen and Mary, I will connect you guys virtually so that you guys can continue
Great.
the conversation. Mary, I'm not sure if there's anybody else specifically, how you want to, you said about, just connecting virtually offline. I have put in the chat